looked up from her bed. Someone was crying. This is the second time she was hearing that in 2 nights. And this time, it seems closer than she thinks. She sat up. Her heart was pounding so fast against her ribs. Was it coming from the stairs? Who cries in a house that isn't theirs? For a moment, she thought about pulling the covers over her head and pretending she heard nothing. But the sobs grew louder, closer, until they echoed inside her chest. She swallowed hard and climbed out of the bed. Her mother was going to be very angry if she caught her awake again. But she had to know. With slow hesitant step, she crept towards the dining area. The room was dimly lit by the moon filtering through the curtains, casting long eerie shadows, and then she saw her. A little girl dressed in white pajamas, with stains, sitting on the bottom step, her face buried in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent grief. God couldn't believe the sight before her. She is not supposed to be there. This wasn't just any girl. This was a girl God had never seen before. And yet, something about her felt terrifyingly familiar.
I see you, my heart they beats. A lady of all men's dreams. You be the one.
Gold, a beautiful young lady, had never lived in a house this big before. Before moving to this big house, she and her mother, Maria, lived in a small apartment with thin walls and noisy neighbors. But then her mother got a big promotion at work. She was so happy that she decided they should have a fresh start. So she rented a large, beautiful apartment. "This is our new home," Maria had said with a big smile, holding Gold's hand as they walked in for the first time. Gold liked the space. She liked the way the floor shined and how her bedroom had a big window where she could see the stars at night. But something felt different. The air inside the house was colder than it should be. And at night, when everything was quiet, she felt like someone was watching her. She didn't tell her mother because she didn't want to seem ungrateful. It was just her imagination. She told herself nothing was wrong. Until that night, Gold's eyes flew open. Someone was crying. She sat up. Her heart was pounding. The sound was soft, like a whisper, but clear enough that she knew it was real. Who is crying in my house at this hour? She held her breath listening. The crying didn't stop. It sounded close, like it was coming from somewhere inside the apartment. Gold's hand felt cold. Should she wake her mother? No, her mother would tell her she was imagining things. She always did. Gold slid out of bed and stepped onto the cold floor. She tiptoed towards her door, pressing her ear against it. The crying was louder now. It was coming from the stairs. Slowly, she pushed the door open and stepped outside. The hallway was dark, but the faint moonlight from the window lit up the space enough for her to see. She held her breath as she walked towards the dining room. Her heart was beating so fast. Then she saw her. A girl sat at the base of the stairs, her small body shaking as she cried into her hands. Gold froze. She wanted to scream, to run, but something about the little girl on the stairs stopped her. The girl looked lost, fragile, like someone who had been crying for a very long time. Gold swallowed hard. She was afraid, but she also felt angry. Who was this girl? And why was she crying in her house? She took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Hey," she whispered sharply. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house at this hour?" The girl lifted her head. Her eyes were red and full of sadness. She wiped her face with small shaky hands and whispered, "Please, help me." Gold frowned. "Help you? Help you with what? How did you even get in here?" The girl only shook her head, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Gold felt her fear turn into annoyance. This was her house. Why was this strange girl crying in her home like she belonged here? "Look," Gold said, crossing her arms. "You need to leave. My mom is going to wake up and she will be really mad if she finds you here. The girl's eyes widened with fear. She clasped her hands together and whispered, "Please don't send me away. I need your help. You are the only one who can hear me." Gold opened her mouth to respond, but before she could say another word, a sharp voice cut through the air. "Gold, what are you doing out of bed?" Gold gasped and spun around. Her mother stood in the hallway, her hands on her hips, looking tired and annoyed. She turned back to the stairs, but the girl was gone. Gold's breath hitched. She blinked. The spot where the girl had been sitting was empty. Her mother sighed. "Gold, why are you standing here in the dark?" Gold pointed at the stairs. I saw a girl. She was sitting there crying." Maria's face softened for a moment, but then she shook her head. "Gold, it's the middle of the night. You must have been dreaming. Come on, let's get you back to bed." Gold shook her head. "No, I wasn't dreaming. She was real. She was right there." Maria walked over and touched Gold's forehead. "You are warm," she murmured. "Have you been feeling sick? This could be malaria. I will give you some medicine in the morning." Gold clenched her fist. "It's not malaria. I saw her. Why don't you ever believe me?" Maria sighed, rubbing her temples. "Gold, you are just tired. You've had a very long day. Let's not do this right now." Gold's shoulders slumped. She knew there was no point in arguing. Her mother would never believe her. With a heavy heart, she followed Maria back to her room. But as she climbed into bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Because deep down, she knew the truth. This girl was real, and she wasn't going to stop crying. Gold tried to forget about the girl. She told herself it was just a dream. Maybe her mother was right. Maybe she had imagined it. But the cry didn't stop. Every night, at the same time, she woke up to the same soft sobs. It was always the same sound, heartbreaking and lonely. She would lie in bed, holding her pillow tight, telling herself not to get up. But the sound always pulled her towards the stairs. And every time, the girl was there, sitting in the same spot crying. Gold tried talking to her again. She asked who she was. She asked why she was crying. But the girl never answered. She only looked at her with sad eyes before disappearing the moment Maria came near. Gold was getting frustrated. Her mother still refused to believe her. "Gold, you are stressing yourself," Maria said one morning over breakfast. "Maybe we should take you to the hospital." "I'm not sick, Mom," Gold snapped. "I know what I saw. She was real." Maria sighed and shook her head. "Enough, Gold. I don't want to hear about this anymore." Gold clenched her fist. No matter what she said, her mother would not listen to her. That night, the crying came again. Gold sat up in bed, anger bubbling inside her. "Enough!" She threw off the cover and marched out of her room, her steps loud against the wooden floor. The girl was there, just like before, her face buried in her hands. Gold's heart pounded, but this time, she didn't let fear stop her. She stomped towards the girl and pointed a finger at her. "You need to tell me who you are," she demanded, "or I will throw you out of my house." The girl flinched, lifting her tear-streaked face. Her eyes were wide with fear. Gold crossed her arms. "My mom thinks I'm crazy because of you. Every night you come here and cry, and then you disappear. Why? What do you want?" For a moment, the girl just stared at her. Then slowly, she wiped her face and whispered, "You can see me. You can hear me." Gold frowned. "Of course I can hear you. You won't stop crying." The girl sniffed, looking almost hopeful. "No one else can. You are the only one." Gold's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" The girl hesitated, then took a deep breath. "My name is Loveth," she said softly, "and I need your help." Gold's anger faded. She stared at Loveth, feeling a strange chill running down her spine. Loveth's voice shook as she spoke. I have been here for so long, waiting for someone to hear me. No one ever does, until you." Gold swallowed. "But why are you here? Where is your family?" Loveth looked down. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, in a quiet, broken voice, she said, "I don't know how to say this, but I think I'm dead." Gold's stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt colder. She wanted to say something, but her throat felt tight. Loveth took a deep breath and looked up at Gold. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time, she was not crying out of sadness. She was crying because she had finally found someone who could listen. Please, she whispered, I need you to hear my story. And then, in trembling voice, Loveth began to tell Gold everything. I don't know where to start. There was a time I was very happy. A time when it was just me and my mom, Linda. We didn't have everything, but we had each other, and that was enough. My mom was a strong woman. She worked hard and loved me more than anything in this world. She always said I was her greatest gift. We lived in this house together, and it was filled with laughter. We would cook together, watch movies, and sometimes, when she was not too tired, she would read me stories before bed. Then Caleb came. At first, I didn't think much of him. He was just a man my mom met at work. She said he was kind, that he understood her. I wasn't sure how I felt about him, but I wanted my mom to be happy. So I smiled and nodded whenever she talked about him. Then he started coming over more often. He brought gifts, not just for my mom, but for me too. He would laugh at my jokes, help me with my homeworks, and tell my mom how lucky she was to have such a smart daughter. I wanted to believe he was nice, but something about him felt wrong. I couldn't explain it because there were moments when he would look at me in a way that made my skin crawl. But he never did anything, so I thought maybe I was just imagining it. When my mom said she was going to marry him, I wanted to say no, but she looked so happy, so I stayed quiet, and that was my first mistake. At first, nothing changed. Caleb was still kind. He still smiled, still acted like he cared, but then my mom started traveling more for work. She was a lawyer, always busy with clients. She trusted Caleb to take care of me when she was gone. That was when things got worse. I remember the first time it happened. It was late at night. My mom was out of town. I'd finished eating dinner and was watching a movie in the living room. Caleb came and sat next to me, closer than usual. I told myself not to move, that it was fine, that I was overreacting. Then he spoke. His voice was very soft, too soft. You are so grown up now, Loveth, he said, so beautiful. Something inside me screamed to run. I stood up, pretending I needed to get something from my room. That was when he grabbed my wrist. Did I say you could leave? He asked. His voice was different now, sharp and dark. I yanked my arm away and took a step back. I need to sleep, I whispered. He smiled, but his eyes were very cold. You disrespected me, he said. That means you need to be punished. That was when he took advantage of me. Then everything went dark in my eyes. The next morning, I woke up sore and broken. Caleb acted like nothing had happened the night before. He made breakfast and smiled at me across the table. He even joked with my mom on the phone while I sat there shaking. I wanted to tell her, but I couldn't, because before she came home, Caleb whispered in my ears, if you tell anyone, I will make sure your mother never believes you. And if you push me too far, I will make your mother suffer. So I stayed silent. I didn't want my mother to suffer. And this became my life. Every time my mom left, I lived in fear. I stopped smiling, stopped laughing. My mom thought I was just going through a phase. She never saw the monster she had married. And Caleb, he was careful. He made my mom trust him more and more. He brought her flowers, cooked her favorite meals, treated her like a queen. To the world, he was the perfect husband. To me, he was a nightmare. Then one night, I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I was in my room, crying into my pillow. Caleb was away on a business trip, and my mom was out of town. I knew this was my chance. I was going to tell her everything. I was scared she wouldn't believe me, but I have to try. I had to. I wiped my tears and sat up, ready to wait for her call. Then my door creaked open. I turned. My heart stopped. It was Caleb, but he wasn't supposed to be home. My blood turned to ice. I jumped out of bed and ran. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away from him. I reached the stairs. My foot slipped, and then nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my room. I felt strange, like something was wrong. I stood up, walked out, and saw the house was just as I had left it. Then I saw my mother. She was crying, holding my pictures. I tried to talk to her, but she didn't hear me. I tried to touch her, but my hands passed right through. Then that was when I knew it. I was dead. Caleb had taken me. He had buried me somewhere deep in the woods. And then he had gone back to his business meeting like nothing had happened. Since that night, I had been stuck here alone. No one could hear me. No one knew the truth. Until you. Loveth's voice broke. She wiped her face, trying to hold back tears. Gold's hands were shaking now. She wanted to speak, but no words came out. Finally, Loveth looked at her. Eyes filled with desperation. You are the only one who can help me. Gold sat frozen. Her heart was pounding so hard. Loveth's words echoed in her head. You are the only one who can help me. Gold's hand felt cold. She swallowed hard. Help you? How? I don't know what to do. Loveth looked desperate. Please, Gold. My mother has no idea what happened to me. She still thinks I'm missing. And Caleb is still with her. Gold's stomach twisted. She imagined Linda still believing in Caleb, still trusting him. She imagined the monster smiling at her, pretending to be the perfect husband. What if he hurts her too? Loveth whispered. What if he does to someone else what he did to me? Gold's breath caught in her throat. She thought about her own mother. What if they were in Linda's place? What if Maria had married someone like Caleb? Gold clenched her fist. She couldn't let this go. She looked at Loveth, determination burning in her chest. I will help you, she said. I promise. Loveth's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Gold, she whispered. Thank you. The next morning, Gold sat at the breakfast table, staring at her cereal. Her mother sat across from her, scrolling through her phone. Gold took a deep breath. Mom, Maria hummed in response, not looking up. Gold gripped her spoon. I need to tell you something. Maria finally looked at her. What is it? Gold hesitated. She knew her mother wouldn't believe her, but she had to try. It's about the girl I saw. Maria sighed. Gold? No, listen, Gold interrupted. Her name is Loveth. She lived in this house before us. She had a mother, just like me, but something bad happened to her. Maria frowned. Gold, you've talked about this before. She didn't just disappear, Mom. Gold said quickly. Her stepfather, Caleb, hurt her. He killed her and buried her somewhere no one can find. Maria's face hardened. Gold, that's enough. But Mom, Maria stood up, pushing her chair back. I will not sit here and listen to you make up scary stories. You have been acting strange since we moved here. I should have taken you to the hospital days ago. Gold felt a lump rise in her throat. I'm not making it up, Mom. She told me everything. She's trapped here, Mom. She can't move on until her mother knows the truth. Maria shook her head. Gold, stop. It's not real. Gold's hand trembled. Why won't you believe me, Mom? Maria sighed and softened her voice. Because ghosts aren't real, sweetheart. Maybe you read something scary, or maybe you are just adjusting to the new house. But this is not real. Tears stung Gold's eyes. She wanted to scream. Maria reached over and squeezed her hands. I think you need to rest. Maybe you are just stressed. Let's forget this, okay? Gold pulled her hands away. No! She wouldn't forget. If her mother wouldn't listen, she would prove it. That afternoon, when Maria went out, Gold took her mother's laptop and started searching. She typed missing girl named Loveth. Nothing. She tried again. Loveth missing from house. Stepfather named Caleb. Still nothing. Gold's heart pounded. What if Loveth had been erased? What if Caleb had covered everything up? Then she had an idea. She typed who lived in her house before. Her eyes widened as she found an article. Linda Okafor, a well-known lawyer, once lived in this house. Gold's fingers shook as she clicked the link. The page loaded, showing a picture of a woman, Linda. She looked beautiful but sad. And then Gold saw it, a line that made her breath stop. Linda Okafor's daughter, Loveth, went missing 5 months ago. Gold's heart raced. It was true. Everything Loveth said was true. She had proof. That night, Maria found Gold sitting on the couch waiting. Maria sighed. Gold, please, not again. I'm too tired today. Gold took a deep breath. Mom, just listen, please. Maria hesitated but sat down. Okay, go on. Gold turned the laptop towards her. Maria frowned, reading the article. Then she went very still. Linda Okafor, she whispered. Gold nodded. Mom, Loveth was real. She lived here. And she's still here, waiting for her mother to know the truth. Maria's lips pressed together. She scrolled through the article, reading more. Then she looked at Gold. How did you find this? Gold swallowed. I searched. I had to prove it to you. Maria let out a slow breath. This doesn't mean ghosts are real, Gold. Gold clenched her face. Then let's talk to her mother. Maria's eyes widened. Gold, no. We have to, Mom. She needs to know. What if she's in danger? What if Caleb is still hurting her? Maria hesitated. Then she sighed and rubbed her temples. I need to think. Gold bit her lips. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no. The next day, Maria called the real estate agency. At first, they refused to share Linda's contact information. It's private, the agent said. We can't give out personal details. Maria gritted her teeth. Listen, this is important. A girl is missing, and I think something happened to her. The agent was silent. Then after a long pause, he sighed. I'll see what I can do. Gold and Maria waited. Hours passed. Then finally, Maria's phone rang. She answered quickly. Hello? The voice on the other end was careful. Mrs. Okafor agreed to speak with you. Gold's heart leaped. Maria took a deep breath and met Gold's eyes. We are meeting her tomorrow. Maria's hand tightened around the steering wheel as she parked in front of a tall office building. She looked at Gold, who sat beside her, nervous but determined. You don't have to come in, Maria said softly. Gold shook her head. I want to. Maria nodded and sighed. She still wasn't sure how this would go. Would Linda believe him? Would she even listen? There was only one way to find out. Together, they stepped into the building and took the elevator to Linda's office. The office was cold and quiet. Linda sat behind a large desk, wearing a sharp black suit. Her face was tired. Her eyes looked hollow, like someone who had cried too many times and had no tears left. She barely looked at them as she gestured for them to sit. Maria hesitated before speaking. Mrs. Okafor, thank you for seeing us. Linda's expression didn't change. Make it quick, I don't have much time. Maria took a deep breath. It's about your daughter Loveth. Linda stiffened. Her fingers curled into fists on the table. I don't discuss my daughter with strangers. Maria pressed on. I know you don't know me, but listen. My daughter, Gold. She has been seeing Loveth. Linda's eyes darkened. Excuse me? Gold spoke up, her voice small but firm. I see her ghost, ma. She talks to me. She cries every night. She told me what happened. Linda's face twisted with anger. She stood up so fast that her chest scraped against the floor. How dare you? She hissed. Maria flinched but kept her ground. Mrs. Okafor, I know this sounds crazy, but it's the truth. You think this is some kind of joke? Linda snapped. Her voice shook with rage. Do you know what it's like to lose a child? To wake up every day not knowing if she's alive or dead. And now, you come here with a ghost stories. Tears welled in Gold's eyes. She told me Caleb did it. She whispered. Linda's breath caught. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Fear, doubt, and pain. But then, just as quickly, she shut it down. She pointed at the door. Get out! Maria's heart sank. Mrs. Okafor, I said get out! Maria felt the weight of defeat as she stood and took Gold's hand. Come on, Gold, let's go. Gold wiped her tears, looking back at Linda one last time. She really loves you, she whispered. But Linda turned away, staring at the wall. Maria and Gold walked out. heartbroken. But Maria wasn't done yet. She refused to give up. The next evening, Maria was at home sipping tea when there was a knock on the door. Something about it felt wrong. She opened the door and froze. Caleb stood there. He was tall, well-dressed, and smiling, but his eyes were cold, almost amused. "Mrs. Maria," he said smoothly, "may I come in?" Maria's grip on the door tightened. "No!" He smiled widened. "That's a shame. I only wanted to talk." Maria swallowed. "Say what you want to say." Caleb leaned in slightly. "I heard you paid my wife a visit." Maria didn't answer. He chuckled. "She told me everything. I must say, I admire your bravery. But you see, Mrs. Maria, my wife has suffered enough. She doesn't need strangers bringing up painful memories." Maria lifted her chin. She deserved to know the truth. Caleb's smile disappeared. His voice dropped low. "There is no truth," he said. "There is no proof. There is only what people believe. And right now, Linda believes me." Maria's stomach twisted. Caleb stepped back and straightened his tie. "I'm a businessman, Mrs. Maria. And in business, we deal in facts. Do you have facts? Do you have proof?" Maria didn't answer. "I don't think so, so stay out of this." Then just like that, he walked away. Maria stood frozen, rage boiling in her chest. She had no proof, but she was going to find some. Maria knew she couldn't do this alone. She grabbed her phone and called Amanda, her childhood friend who worked with law enforcement. Amanda answered on the second ring. "Maria, what's wrong?" Maria took a deep breath. "I need help." That night, Amanda sat across from Maria in her living room, listening carefully. When Maria finished telling her everything, Amanda sighed. "This is serious, Maria. But Caleb is right. Without evidence, we can't do anything." Maria clenched her fist. "There has to be a way." Amanda was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, "We need Linda." Maria frowned. "She won't listen." "She doesn't have to," Amanda said. "We just need her to get Caleb to talk." Maria's eyes widened. "You want her to wear a wire?" Amanda nodded. "If we can get him to confess. We have him." Maria hesitated. "Do you think she would do it?" Amanda sighed. "I don't know. But if there is any chance she still doubts him, she needs to hear the truth for herself." Maria nodded slowly. "Then we have to try." She grabbed her phone and dialed Linda's number. She swallowed hard and pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, then to her surprise, Linda answered. "Why are you calling me?" Her voice was cold, but there was something else beneath it, something shaky. Maria took a deep breath. "Because you deserve to know the truth." Then Linda said, "I already told you to leave me alone." Maria tightened her grip on the phone. "Caleb killed your daughter." A sharp intake of breath. Maria pushed forward. "You don't have to believe me, but will you at least listen to your daughter?" Then softly, Linda whispered, "What do you mean?" "Loveth is still here," Maria said. "She's been waiting for you. She needs you to know what really happened to her." Linda's breathing was uneven. "This is insane." Maria looked at Amanda, who nodded. "Please, just meet us. If we are lying, you never have to speak to us again. But if we are telling the truth, Loveth's voice will be heard. Where do I meet you?" Linda sat stiffly in the cafe, gripping her coffee cup like it was the only thing holding her together. Maria and Amanda sat across from her. "Say what you came to say," Linda said. Her voice was tight. Maria looked at Amanda, then back at Linda. "Your daughter didn't run away. Caleb killed her." "No, that's not true. Caleb loved her. He treated her like his own." Maria leaned forward. "Linda, deep down, you know something was wrong. You felt it, didn't you?" Tears welled in Linda's eyes. I don't know," Amanda spoke gently. "Linda, if you don't believe us, then find out for yourself." Linda looked up. Amanda placed a small recording device on the table. Linda's breath hitched. "Where this, Amanda? Talk to Caleb. See what he says when he doesn't know anyone is listening." Linda's hand curled into fist. She looked at the recorder, then at Maria, then back down. Then with a slow nod, she took the device. Linda sat in the dimly lit living room, staring at the man she had once trusted with her heart. Caleb smiled at her from across the room, sipping his whiskey. "You look tense," he said smoothly. Linda forced a weak smile. "Just a long day." She took a shaky breath. "I was thinking about Loveth today." Caleb's face didn't change. "I know it's hard." Linda looked at him closely. Do you ever wonder what happened to her? Caleb sighed and set his glass down. Linda, we've talked about this. She ran away. Linda's nail dug deep into her palms. Are you sure? His eyes flickered just for a second, but she saw it. I miss her, Linda whispered. I wish I could see her again. Caleb watched her carefully. Then slowly he smiled. She was such a sweet girl. Then Linda shouted, Sweet girl? Was that why you have to do what you did to her? Caleb looked at her. Then he leaned back on the couch. She would have ruined everything. She was getting too smart, asking too many questions. It was only a matter of time before she caused problem. Caleb took another sip of his drink. You know, you are not as sweet as you used to be. But Loveth, she was the sweetest. Ha! You are just an old woman, and I think it's time I move on. Linda's heart ached. Then suddenly, boom, the front door burst open. Caleb barely had time to react before officers flooded into the room. Guns raised, hands where we can see them. Linda jumped up and backed away as two officers grabbed Caleb, forcing him to ground. He struggled, cursing, but they pinned him down. Maria and Amanda rushed in behind them. Amanda walked up and played the recording. Caleb's voice echoed through the room. She had to be dealt with. Caleb's face twisted in rage. He turned to Linda, his eyes burning. You set me up? Linda stared at him. Her hands clenched at her side. You took my daughter from me. Caleb snarled, fighting against the officers. You have no proof. Amanda stepped forward. Actually, we do. She held up her phone. And when we are done with you, we'll have even more. Under the interrogation room, Caleb tried to lie. He tried to twist the story, but the recording was enough to break him. And when they pressed him for that, when they asked him where Loveth was, he finally cracked. She's buried in the woods, he muttered, past the old bridge. Linda covered her mouth, sobbing. Maria took her hand and squeezed it. They had done it. They had finally found the truth, and Loveth could finally rest. The morning was quiet, yet the air felt heavy. A small crowd gathered around the grave, standing in solemn silence. The wind carries the scent of fresh earth. Loveth's remains had finally been found. She was no longer lost, no longer waiting. Linda stood in front of the gravestone, her hands shaking as she held a single white flower. Her eyes were red from crying, her face pale with sorrow. Maria and Gold stood a few steps away, watching as Linda knelt down and placed the flower gently on her daughter's grave. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Linda whispered. I should have listened. I should have seen the signs. The guilt in her voice was unbearable. Maria placed a hand on her shoulder. She knows you love her. Linda let out a shaky breath. But love wasn't enough, was it? She closed her eyes. I let a monster into our home. I trusted him. And because of me, my little girl suffered. Gold swallowed hard, fighting back her own tears. Loveth had just wanted her mother to know the truth. She had waited for months, crying every night, hoping someone would listen. And now, finally, she had been heard. The ceremony was simple, but it was filled with love. When it was over, Linda stayed behind, sitting by the grave, whispering soft apologies and promises. Maria and Gold gave her space, knowing this was a moment only she could face. Caleb had been convicted. The evidence was too strong, and his own confession had sealed the fate. He had tried to lie, to twist the truth, but there was no escaping what he had done. He was sentenced to life in prison. But even though justice had been served, Linda would never be the same. She had lost the most important person in her life, and no amount of punishment for Caleb would ever bring Loveth back. That night, Gold lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house felt different and lighter. For the first time since moving in, there was no crying, no soft sob in the dark. Gold turned over and closed her eyes, letting out a deep breath. It was over. Then a gentle warmth filled the room. Gold opened her eyes and gasped. Loveth stood by the window, bathed in soft golden light. She wasn't crying anymore. She looked peaceful. Gold sat up slowly. Loveth? Loveth smiled. Thank you, Gold. Gold felt her throat tighten. Are you okay now? Loveth nodded. I can rest now. My mother knows the truth. I am not alone anymore. Gold blinked back tears. I will miss you. Loveth's smile didn't fade. I will always be with you. The golden light around her grew brighter. And then just like that, she was gone. For the first time, the house was truly silent. No more crying, no more waiting. Gold lay back down, feeling a strange mix of sadness and peace. She had done what she promised. She had helped Loveth find her voice. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Justice had been served. The monster had been caught. The truth had been revealed. But at what cost? A mother had lost her child. A girl had suffered in silence for too long. God couldn't stop thinking about it. How many other voices were unheard? How many people were crying in the dark, waiting for someone to listen? She didn't know, but she did know one thing. Next time, she would listen. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to share this story with your family and your friends who might love to see them. Till I see you again in my next story. Goodbye.